Then there is a question that I guess is a short answer, but maybe you correct me. Because what you hear from people connected to Russian propaganda is the idea of the possibility of a settlement in which territory is given to Russia. No? These people obviously don't think about the lives of people, don't think about what occupation means. They think that land is something that can be given. Okay. And so what I wanted to ask you was, is it possible a politically stable Ukraine with a cession of territory to Russia? I assume not, but yeah, no, that was it.
Yeah, so actually, if we speak about the worst case scenario, so this is a worst case scenario. For instance, yes, if Russia gains some military victory, yes, and it ultimately enshrines that it grabs land from Ukraine. This will obviously be a disaster for the millions of people who are connected to those territories. Some of them may not return home, never, and others will have to adapt to the occupation and sort of assimilation. But also in the Ukraine, what will remain not under the occupation, obviously that different revanchist, yes, sentiments, yes, for revenge, they are a very fertile ground for exactly the far right, yes. So ultimately, this will lead to on this way of ultra-nationalist radicalization. This will lead to more prominence of those forces who will now say that we need to, you know, do whatever is needed to return what's ours. So that would be a prerequisite for really quite unstable situation inside. But ultimately, it would also mean that if Putin is successful with his plans, that this means he won't stop. Yes, so he may plan other incursions, whether to Ukraine itself, or whether maybe to Moldova to get Transnistria attached, and so on. So this will mean not, as I said, no peace, but actually a more large conflict, large scale conflict, and more appetite for the aggressor. I don't hear you actually.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm here. I didn't press the button. So I was saying, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Alexi. I would actually go on, but I guess it's good if now I leave some space for questions by, well, pretty much everybody else.
Hi. So usually we are quite shy because of our English. So that's why we from Sinistra per l'Ucraina let Alessandro speak alone, but we are here. And I want to thank Dennis and Alexi. I hope I'm not pronouncing too bad your name, sorry, for joining this meeting, for speaking with us tonight. And I'm sorry because my question maybe is a bit too personal, but personal is politics, so I hope you will not find it too personal. But I wanted to say something about that I agree with you with the importance of support the military struggle, but at the same time, I think that there are many ways of fighting, and that your engagement in politics, in communication, and in volunteering are really important too, I think, for the future of the country and for the success of the common struggle against the Russian invasion. But so that's why I would like to know if the Ukrainian institutions are recognizing and prizing this kind of efforts against the invasion, or if you, as men, are feeling more pressure to join the army in the face of this tough situation on the front. And I also would like to ask you, how do you imagine the future of the politics and society in Ukraine after the war?
Okay, I may start with the first question, and thank you. First of all, yes, Ukrainian society and Ukrainian society is recognizing the struggle, not only military struggle, but also volunteer work. It's recognized and it's appreciated, and yeah, it's first part of your question. And second part about the future, the political future for Ukraine. I think it's better Denise to talk about it. Really, I'm so into the processes right now that I rarely find time to think that far in the future. Yeah, that's true.
Just to continue but if you are asking about like the official institutions, yes, so it's a mixed bag. So it may from case to case it may differ, yes, but because ultimately, yes, we have thousands of different initiatives, different networks, and formal and informal ones who are engaged, yes, but ultimately, yeah, when you check the opinion polls, yes, on whom Ukrainians trust the most, then you will have the armed forces and the volunteers like on top two positions, and then like the approval or at least trust towards all the political institutions is declining. Yes, towards the president it's still higher than half of population, but it's declining as well. And parliament and government, they deep below. So regarding the post-war vision, yes, so we would like to see socially, genderly, environmentally just reconstruction that would put the interests of the people on the center of everything, not that would actually involve. I understand that again, the case of the post-war reconstruction, post-Second World War reconstruction in Europe, it was a result of this class compromise, and it was about the reformism, but it was also a sign of that labor was empowered in the war, actually. Yes, and the capitalists, employers had to take it into account. So to create this like sort of Keynesian post-war capitalism. So we see that the war, it brings lots of terrible things, and it often brings out the worst in human beings. Yes, but it also creates different sorts of this self-organization of solidarity. And if we, as like the working class of Ukraine, can manage to build upon them, yes, we may try to challenge the existing oligarchy capitalist system. And again, opinions they very diverse on the issue. But for instance, our trade unionist comrades from the Independent Miners Union in Kryvyi Rih, the majority of them are actually serving in the army now. And they often say that, okay, after we got this experience, yes, after we have paid with our risking their lives for the existing of Ukraine as an independent republic, so they won't be messed, yes, by those in power in future, yes, because these are people who will get this experience of wartime, so possibly they can also like act against the government as well, against those in power and those with money. So they some of them have a more optimistic view, that maybe like those partisans and fighters in the Second World War, in the anti-Hitlerite coalition, in the resistance, that they will use their baggage of their resistance to actively put pressure on the other side in this class conflict. But there are also lots of people, they feel the burden of the war. They got this, they really have gone through terrible things, and yes, they maybe they have more apathy, yes, more so this is really up to the question about the political will, and whether we can politically organize, yes, in these quite different, yes, conditions, yes, because you already also mentioned it. In times of martial law, you don't have like politics as usual, don't have street politics as usual, but still you can find throughout the country lots of examples of different forms of resistance, different forms of protests, from nurses to students. There have been these activities, and maybe they give more confidence that this would be seized after the war. So, and yeah, there is also this question about the general, yes, pressure, yes, on that, including this internal pressure, yes, because lots of our comrades are also now fighting, and some of them have been fighting from the first day. So it's 2 years already. It's too much, yes, and you need to rotate people. And ultimately now they want to, like, the parliament is suggesting this new law on mobilization. It will be harsher, yes, because yes, but at the same time it gives the prospect of those who have been for more than 2 years fighting to ultimately demobilize. So this is a complicated question ultimately, yes, but even in case of these divisions that may be created, yes, because as I mentioned, it's disproportionately, yes, people who are have more money and have more better social status, they have more loopholes to avoid being like conscripted, drafted, and so on. So disproportionately, you will have people with lower incomes who get there, yes. But still, it doesn't mean that those workers who remained behind the front lines, who do their ordinary work, that they aren't, yes, as you mentioned, they do the same contribution, yes, no, not maybe the same, but they do the contribution that has to be evaluated as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to both of you. Then afterwards, there was a question from Luca.
Yeah. Hi. First of all, I have to ask, sorry for my English, which is really, really awful. Secondly, I have some question about the party, the position of the party around some things. For example, the position of the party about Machno and the anarchist revolution during the Civil War. Secondly, how do you deal with the past, with the Soviet past? You said you recognize yourself as a Marxist, so I guess there could be some problems sometimes with some anti-communist activities in Ukraine. And another question is the position of the party about the possibility of Ukraine to join NATO and the European Union. If you think that maybe joining NATO is good, but not the European Union or otherwise. Thank you.
Yeah, so all the questions were about we are not officially a party yet, yes, but like we strive to become one. So yeah, I would speak about the social movement, but obviously you will have a big range of stances because Ukrainian left, it's small like all the Eastern European countries, but it's diverse in its approaches. So you will have people from anarchists to social democrats with all these different slight differences. But we tried to be as inclusive as possible, including that concerns the past, because actually, and this is a thing that right-wing conservative nationalists wouldn't like to speak about, but the majority of important figures in Ukrainian culture and in Ukrainian national liberation struggle were firmly on the left. Yes, so we had a big tradition, lots of traditions, yes, of socialism and anarchism in Ukraine. And like the most famous writers, Ivan Franko, Lesya Ukrainka, so were socialists. She was also the second one. She was also a feminist. There was this big upheaval of the culture in the 1920s after the revolution, and all of these people were revolutionary socialists. Some of them more radical than the Bolsheviks. So there are different groups that try to stick to some of these traditions, yes, and to claim that all others are wrong. But we see that yes, all of these people and all of these currents, they had a common goal of emancipating the humanity, emancipating the person, emancipating the women and men. And lots of them, they combined also this social liberation with anti-colonial or anti-imperialist liberation of the peoples. So in this way, we recognize the contribution of all of these currents. And I think that throughout the world, if you ask about, if you do a survey with people who were born in Ukraine, and you will have Trotsky and Nestor Makhno in the lists as most recognizable people coming from Ukraine, and people who actually had these ties with their origin in Ukraine. So Makhno is yes, it's he is quite an uneasy figure for the state propaganda, albeit it also in some way sometimes it tries to incorporate him also like one of the Ukrainian heroes who fought for freedom, sometimes blaming him for siding with the Bolsheviks and for being against the state. and so on. But I think he's probably one of the best, not just recognized but perceived by the general population, because yes, he has this aura, his this context, yes, of a person who was firm in the struggle for the liberation of the common people. Yes, so ultimately, if you will try to triangulate some kind of medium perception of Nestor Makhno, then yes, it would be rather positive. Yes, and yes, we can do like try to do big class analyze and try to explain how, like for instance, Makhno was connected to the struggles of the peasantry in like this part of Ukraine, and then you can find like other leftist groups that were more connected to other sectors of peasantry or other sectors of industrial working class or non-industrial working class in the cities. Yes, but we try not to be this historical, like how it's called, yes, people who try to reconstruct history. Yes, this Russian war criminal Girkin Strelkov, who was quite essential for the Russian intervention in Ukraine in 2014, and now who is now sentenced for criticizing how Putin wages the current war. So he was one of these reconstructors for the White Guards, yes, for the reactionaries in the civil war in Russia. They used to put on these uniforms and like to sing these songs about the Tsar. So these are historical reconstructors. We don't want to be like these people. We want to evaluate what was useful, what was maybe faultful in what was done by the revolutionaries and activists of the past, but we try also to recognize all of them. So albeit we are not anarchists, we are mostly we have also anarchists, but mostly we are like in this more Marxist trend of socialism. But we think that Makhno and his movement was quite a genuine manifestation of this strive for liberation. And if we speak about the Soviet past again, the problem with this decommunization processes, yes, and with this one-sided perception of everything, is it loses the complexity of this processes, yes, and by criminalizing everything that happened after 1917 until the collapse of the Soviet Union, for instance, yes, but it was a very contradictory process, yes, and again, some people in our organization, they come from some more ideologically confined positions, yes, that have this Leninist or Trotskyist more narrowly background. Some come from something completely different, that they don't bother with all this old stuff. Yes, but again, we try to dissect and to find what was progressive, what was ultimately borrowed in and actually influenced the liberation struggles, revolutionary struggles throughout the world, and what was reactionary, what was in this Soviet past ultimately led to all those crimes and tragedies and to the demise of the Soviet system, because ultimately both reformist social democracy and Stalinist form of communist movement, they had their point of triumph in 20th century, but ultimately both failed. So we need to learn upon the successes of the revolutionary and generally leftist movements, but also about their failures and not to repeat them. So we try to be quite, like complex in approaching the Soviet past, but ultimately from this Stalinist counter-revolution, it's obvious that the legacy of this is now a very heavy burden on leftists in Eastern Europe, because it not just discredited the socialism, communism, it also disrupted the tradition of self-organization. It disrupted the tradition of workers' movement. Yes, because workers' protests have been suppressed throughout the Soviet history, and then we have to reinvent ourselves as leftists almost from the scratch. Yes, so we had like a number of, say, leftist dissidents in Soviet history, and there were these spontaneous movements like the miners' strikes in the late 80s. Yes, but the tradition, the legacy of this rich legacy of socialist leftist struggles in the past, it was destroyed actually by those same Stalinist Brezhnevist bureaucracy. Yeah, so that's why it's so complex. And there was some third question, and I possibly forgot it. About NATO and EU. Yes, so to be short, the general popular opinion, yes, the best advertiser for NATO in Ukraine and in the Nordic countries and in Europe in general is possibly Putin, because prior to the annexation of Crimea, the support for NATO membership was very low. Yes, prior to the full-scale invasion, it was like higher than half of the population, but it wasn't omnipotent. And now it's like very, very, very high, because Ukrainians just want any way to have security guarantees. We had the Budapest memorandum that was violated by Russia that signed it. So Ukrainians try to find a way to ensure this security, this collective security. And unfortunately, they see that nothing exists except NATO. Yes, so this has led to this rise of popularity of NATO membership. But ultimately, you will see that people would possibly vote for NATO in the referendum, but they grow more skeptical about like NATO, because they also see the hesitance in these Western governments, and they see that actually the main countries in Europe, they don't want to let Ukraine into NATO. And maybe this trend, it will also not be so ultimative. Yes, but in general, we see that actually the NATO membership for Ukraine isn't a realistic prospect. It was never a realistic prospect, whatever Putin says. But NATO countries, crucial NATO members, they never wanted Ukraine to be part of this. And we still think that it would be better to reconfigure the general global security architecture in order to empower smaller countries, not to resort to these old ways of military blocs dominated by imperialist players. Yes, so we still, it's an unpopular opinion possibly in Ukraine, and I think even in the organization it would be like lots of discussions, but we don't see this as some essential questions that is now on the agenda, because it's not up to Ukraine, it's up to other countries whether they want this. And EU membership is a more tricky question, yes, because ultimately, again, EU is an like existing EU is a neoliberal project that is aimed not for the well-being of the peoples and not for the free flow of the people, but for the free flow of capital. Yes, but at the same time, those things that people are usually concerned in Europe when they criticize European Union, they have been already implemented in Ukraine. So we had lots of neoliberal policies without any EU, And if for Norway, joining EU would be a huge decrease in social guarantees, for Ukraine it may be even more tools, yes, to appeal for, like the European Social Charter. But ultimately, if people speak about Europe as European Union in Ukraine, they will also mean completely different things. Yes, so if you speak with these neoliberal pundits, business experts, they will say, "Oh, EU, nice. We need more deregulation. We need more, like free flow of capital. We need more investment, more everything." So they see this neoliberal project, yes, there. But if you speak with most trade unionists, they will say, Europe, it's about militant unions, it's about higher social standards, it's about this general welfare state. So they will see maybe more faultly, but they will see this side of this coin. So we think that again it will be quite a complex question, but sometimes, yes, you if you have all the negative effects of something and you are outside of it, you cannot even influence it. It's worse than being inside and trying to join others in the ways to combat these trends. So for Eastern Europe, this EU membership isn't the same as for the countries of Western and Southern Europe. Albeit we understand that what was shown on the case of Greece, yes, that EU is something that is designed in a way to prevent progressive policies to be implemented. But maybe we have such a neoliberal ruling class that for them EU is something that will be more progressive than they envision, actually, for themselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, this was great response. I'm not following up in the interest of the next questions. There was a question from Angelo and then one from Giuseppe.
Hi, everyone. I have just a couple of questions about the perception of the new regulation about humanitarian goods. How is it already affecting the voluntary work? How is it perceived also in the key of coming closer to Europe? And especially how much is really affecting the humanitarian help? And the second question is about the general politics right now in Ukraine. How much the perceived turmoil between Zelensky, Zaluzhny, and whatnot is really affecting zero lines and the chain of the military in effect. Thank you.
Okay, I think I can talk about. Sorry, I think I can talk about changes in humanitarian regulations. Yes, generally, all the volunteers, all the volunteer organizations are. They hate these changes because it's designed towards regulating the biggest humanitarian organizations, and but it's affecting all the organizations, and there are a lot of quite small NGOs and not registered organizations who are working in the humanitarian field. Yeah, it's making the work harder, but really it doesn't change the amount. It makes make us do more effort, but and our comrades who are delivering the goods from Europe, it makes more work, more paperwork, but generally it's not something that changes. It's not a game changer. Yeah. And the second question about the conflict of Zelensky and Zaluzhny. Yeah, I think it's a difficult question, but for sure it can impact the people on the front line. I can tell from my experience of like I have a lot of friends and comrades there, and like it's not the best feeling when you are in a shit, you are really risking your life, you are like you are going through the worst shit that humans could possibly go through, and you hear that like political top can't organize themselves to not to be perceived as two opposing sides. Yeah, it may impact people on the front line, but I think generally it's like most people. It's my perception from my bubble. Like it's we see it as just media trying to do some media work, like to gain some clicks and views.
Yeah, because just yesterday we had this overhyped, like reporting in social media that Zelensky had sacked Zaluzhny, and ultimately it wasn't true. Yes, so,
yeah, but a lot of media got a lot of clicks, and a lot of videos got a lot of views. But it's bullshit. It's not true.
yeah. So ultimately, I have no clue what actually like exists between them. Whether this cleavage is so irreconcilable and like there is like real conflict, or it's only hyped up. So
yeah, and I think it's maybe it's a problem that they don't communicate it right. But like I think they should have done a proper communication. They like two people doing like an interview, like 3, 4, 5 months ago.
Okay, thank you again. Actually, I didn't follow this recent Zelensky Zaluzhny news story at all. Well, now we have one last, I guess, one last question from Giuseppe, one of our comrades from another one. There were many from Sinistra per Ucraina.
Okay. Oh, just a big difficulty that I encounter when I speak with, try to make me understood with some of my old friends and comrades, is that in Ukraine there is a certain freedom of speech, a certain freedom of organize trade unionism and so on, because many of this old friend of mine are, I don't know why, convinced that Russia and Ukraine is the same situation. The dissidents are put in jail, and so
Sorry.
it's important to explain to these people that it is not the same the situation as the fundamental freedom and the fundamental rights. Of course, there is martial law in Ukraine. There are difficult, but as a situation not comparable with the Russian situation, that is sort of fascism or authoritarian state. If two people make a little protest, they immediately are put in jail. So in Ukraine, the situation, fortunately, is different. So it's important to understand, to make people understand that you are fighting all for democracy, for the right to organize, also to the right to, without which there is any possibility of change except war, except a sort of what I hope will could happen in Russia, but is a sort of violent thing. So you cannot be pacifist and say, okay, it's the same thing, Ukraine and the situation, internal situation of liberty, of human rights in Ukraine and in Russia. So
Yeah, exactly. So just again, recently in Russia, even like there is a Stalinist guy, Udaltsov, who when he was jailed for anti-Putin protests, yes, and from the prison he supported the annexation of Crimea very much, and now he supported the current stage of war, yes, but even him was arrested and he is awaiting his trial. So any sort of not just discontent, but any sort of independent activity that isn't controlled by the government and by its apparatus is outlawed effectively in Russia. Yes. So this false symmetry. Yes, we criticize a lot what's happening in Ukraine, and we aren't content with that level of civil liberties. We would like to expand them. We find lots of these shortcomings and lots of wrongdoings of the authorities. But ultimately, Ukraine never descended to full autocracy. Mostly, one of the explanations, one of the parts of reasons was because, yes, there was this internal struggle in the oligarchy capitalist class. But the other, I think, more important part was that Ukrainian society managed to remain in some state of being mobilized. Yes, so we had mass protests every several years, and ultimately this never stopped, this never ceased. and this prevented any government, any president from consolidating all the power. Albeit, I think the majority of them wanted to do this. Yes, so Kuchma was the architect of this system, oligarchy capitalism, and he was clearly trying to lead Ukraine into this way of post-Soviet autocracy, like lots of the other post-Soviet republics. But it never fully ended this circle. At the other hand, in Russia and Belarus, if we speak about trade union activities, yes, and we speak a lot about that attacks, legal attacks on the existing trade unions that are conducted by Ukrainian authorities. But it means that Ukrainian trade unions, they can agree to disagree. They can actually conduct their activity, even if this activity goes against the intentions of the government. While in Russia, the independent unions have been choked down for a long time. You have this official so-called Federation of Independent Unions that is completely the part of the apparatus that is also very pro-war, and it isn't a union, proper union confederation. It's just a continuation of the management of your at your workplace. And there are lots of cases of labor activists who have been jailed for different pretexts. Yes, and ultimately all type of independent activity, trade union activity in Russia was suppressed, and this goes for every sector of social life. But the situation is even worse on the occupied regions. Yes, if we speak about what happened to any forms of self-organization, for instance, in the Donbas in eastern part of Ukraine, it was completely destroyed. Yes, because this is in Russia you have this fascistoid autocracy, but on that territories you have some sort of gray zone. Yes, where lawlessness is even higher, and this is something that may be a future for the other parts of Ukraine that can be occupied by Russia. This is why there is no symmetry. There is no, both are the same. Both are bourgeois regimes. So we shouldn't support any of them. You shouldn't support the governments, but you should think about those people who are affected. Yes, and again, this is not a question about pacifism, because I have met people who are 100% pacifists, who were actually volunteering for humanitarian work in Ukrainian regions. Because yes, your convictions, they say you shouldn't take arms into your hands. I would never want to kill people, even if these people are fascist aggressors. Yes, but these people who are genuine pacifists, they found ways to actually be in solidarity with the people in other ways. Yes, and those people who claim that they are so anti-war and so pacifist, but at the same time this is just some veil, some thin veil, where for actually rooting for the other imperialist. Yes, we are against our imperialist, the Western one, so we should support its competitors, even if they may be weaker on a global stage. Yes, but Nazi Germany was weaker probably than Western allies. Yes, in the economic sense, and it was bringing a more murderous form of capitalism and dictatorship. Yes, so this is what in this iteration is proposed by modern day Russia. So this is something that destroys, as you mentioned, yes, any sort of democratic organizing, any sort of freedom, any space for freedom. And in this case, yes, and we see that there is almost no underground revolutionary activity in Russia. So there are these small, maybe groups of combat organization of anarcho-communists that try to derail shipments with with military cargo, but they are very small. And ultimately, yes, Putin tries to show that everything is under his control, and there is no discontent in Russia. Like everyone is pushed out of the country if you criticize it, yeah, including those people who were on real left, yes, who were engaged into trade union activism, into leftist politics, like Mikhail Labanov and lots of others. So this is completely, yes, this is a false equation, yes.
And just at this point, we are, given that it's late, there's only 9 people left. I will renew the reminder. Please donate to this specific crowdfunding and the other ones that you will see popping up on the Solidarity Collective page. Follow Social Nuke, follow Commons, fantastic articles. And and then to the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Grazie.
Prego.